Welcome back to Taiwan Outlook. Our guest today is Professor Chao Chien-min. He's a professor and graduate student of Development Studies at National Cheng University. Professor Chao, we've been talking about China's domestic political and economic reforms. And let's talk about its external relations, especially its relations with Taiwan. And what's your view on China's current Taiwan policy?
China's Taiwan policy has been heavy-handed. I think from the very beginning. I think not many people are very pleased here on this side of the Taiwan Strait. I think China's policy has been trying to suppress our sovereignty, which is a reality. I think the country has been existing for nearly 1 century. And the People's Republic of China has been in existence for only 60 years. So I think, but China has refused to face that reality. And consequently, China has taken very coercive measures to suppress Taiwan's international space. I think this has given rise to the independence movement here in Taiwan. I think many people, they are not opposed to the Taiwan independence movement exactly because I think Taiwan's international space is squeezed by the Chinese authority. I think for decades that has been, not to mention military intimidation, I think for decades that has been at the center of China's Taiwan policy. I think then since the year 2000, when Taiwan had power transition and a new party called the People's, DPP came to power, and I think they had a different mainland China policies. And I think Chinese government realized that their policy needed to be changed. I think right now, under Hu Jintao's leadership, I think Chinese government has been trying to also look to the Taiwanese people and to try to give some good, so-called good policies by letting Taiwan's agricultural products to be imported into the Chinese market. And it's possible that Chinese tourists might also come to Taiwan to tour. Policies like this, I think this is new. I think this is good direction, but it's not enough. I think China has to, the sovereignty issue has to be resolved. I think China has to understand, there is a sovereignty here, and there's more than one sovereignty.
That's right.
The two sides can set aside the issue, but China cannot force other countries, including the United States, Japan, so on and so forth, to say unilaterally that there's only one country in the world, and which is that China, and this is a part of that China. This is unrealistic, and it's not going to work.
But do you think that it's possible for China to come to the terms with the reality that Taiwan has been there and as a sovereign country?
China has not been able to do that. But I think I see changes, although it's very small changes. But I see changes. In the future, I think these two sides it has been a learning experience for both sides. I think Taiwan, learning how to enact mainland China policy as China rises, and China has to learn how to write a new Taiwan policy because of there's a democracy on this side. So I think both sides have been learning. I remain hopeful that in the future China would have to be forced into making more concessions there.
Taiwan Strait has been seen by some people as one of the fresh points.
Yes.
And that could trigger conflicts, or especially military conflicts. And there are concerns about the military imbalance in the Taiwan Strait as well. What's your take on the possible military conflicts in the Taiwan Strait?
Well, I think it's if that happened, I think it's the most unfortunate thing, not only for the people of living on both sides of the Taiwan Strait, but also for the entire world, because it's going to be the third largest economy or the fourth largest economy, depending how you see China's economy. Fights against the world's 19th largest economy. This is not small localized conflict. This is a conflict with a global repercussion. Remember in 1999 when Taiwan had earthquake, the price of the semiconductor chips, the world market went up. So if a major conflict like this erupted, I think it's going to be a disaster for the whole world. Therefore, I don't think it's very likely that I think people living both sides, including their leadership, understand the how much stakes are there. I think leaders are going to be extremely cautious. I think leaders on this side of the Taiwan Strait will be very cautious. And I think there are things we need to do, and there are also policies we need to implement. But I think our leaders are aware of the possible consequences. I think the same logic should also be applied to that side, the other side of the Taiwan Strait. I think they also understand if irrational policy like that is undertaken, then not only China's economy is going to be set back for decades, but Taiwan might be gone forever.
That's right.
And the international society community would, can never forget China for that. So I think there's a huge consequences.
But as we know that the nature of the relationship between the two sides of Taiwan Strait has been a very complex one. In other words, economically, socially, these two societies are growing closer to each other. But militarily, there are increasing number of missiles, developed on the opposite side of Taiwan Strait. Politically, there has been stalemate, no talks, official talks between the two sides. How do you see about the future prospects for talks between the two countries?
The two sides have become very highly dependent upon each other economically.
Yeah.
This is an entirely different ballgame compared to, say, a decade ago. Before the 1990s, the two sides, they just engaged in military confrontation and diplomatic confrontation and nothing else. And I think that was certainly not logical, but understandable. But right now, it's not going to be possible. I think the two sides are there. China is Taiwan's biggest economic partner. We export more goods to Chinese market than the American market. And we are the biggest source of foreign capital for China's economic development. And then 70% of China's high-tech industry, computer industry, information industry is, both capital and technology come from Taiwan. So I think the two sides are way too much, too much dependency between the two sides. And if that's the case, I think right now, we cannot face each other. I think not official channels. A lot of problems have been accumulated, and it's still accumulating. I think sooner or later, the two sides, I think they already understand there is an urgent need for the two sides to face each other, and there are tons of things they need to sit down and talk them out. Many things, I think they can work them out, including how can the two sides peacefully coexist.
That's right.
In the international community. I think this is a huge world, and it's a highly dependent, interdependent world. I don't believe, there is no space for the two sides to peacefully coexist.
That's right.
I think there are many other things the two sides can cooperate. I think I think they need to face each other.
Yeah, as we know, that China shut down the official channel of communication or talks in the year 1999.
Yes.
And ever since, China has refused to come back to the negotiation table. Do you think that China is ready for talks with the incoming leaders? As we know that we are holding an election in March. In March 22nd. Do you think China is ready to talk to any leader who it might be?
Yes and no, because I think China severed the talks between the two semi-official organizations, SEF on our side and REDS on China's side, in the late 1990s. In the meantime, I think China also realizes it's not very smart decision, because the two sides are just they are growing even wider apart today than say a decade ago. So I think to some extent, I think China also regretted the decision, but yet there is nothing they can do, because they have made the One China principle the cornerstone of the resumption of any talks. But so in the future, I think for any unofficial or official talks between the two sides, I think the condition is still there. China is still very insistent that Taiwan has to go back to the so-called 1992 consensus, when the two sides agreed there was only one China, and that China, is up to different interpretation. But I think if you are talking about official, even semi-official talks, you know that there is the obstacle still remains.
Yeah.
However, I think China also realizes there is an urgent need for talks.
Yeah.
So I think China has also relented somehow in the past few years to make issues like direct transportation, direct flights between two sides, and sea transportation, aviation between the two sides possible without any political strain. So I think China has also, opened up some opportunities and severed the connection between talks and political competition. So in the future, I think it's likely, and actually I think it's highly likely, whoever wins the election in the coming election here in Taiwan and becomes the next president of this country, I think there are certain talks that can be entered. But there are also certain talks that need more work in order to get them started.
So in general, you believe that the two leaders from both sides will become more pragmatic in trying to engage talks with each other?
I think so.
Yeah. Professor Chao, thank you very much for coming to our program.
Thank you.
And that's Professor Chien-min Chao from National Zhengzhou University. And thank you for watching Taiwan Outlook, and see you next week.